Welcome to This Is Not About Your Body, where we talk about all the real shit body image issues are actually about, because they're never just about the way you look. I'm your host, Jessie Nealand, and today I have with me Laia. And actually, Laia, I'm going to have you say your last name because it occurs to me I didn't get the pronunciation proper here. Will you say your name for me?
Laia Pedreno Mateo.
There you go. Who is a psychotherapist, dating coach, and EMDR practitioner who works with a lot of single and socially anxious folks looking to form connections and find relationships. And she's also a client and a friend. And I'm so excited to have her on here today. So welcome, Laia.
Yay. Thank you for having me. Yay.
Thank you for being here. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do and who you do it with.
So I work for the Relationship Center, and we work with people who are socially anxious and also people who are struggling with dating, or maybe they don't feel they struggle with dating, but they haven't had good results.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's the main population we work with.
And what brought you to that work? Like, what led to that being your sort of niche?
Well, I didn't struggle with social anxiety because I'm from Spain, and I don't like, every time I tell somebody in Spain that I work with this, they're like, oh, what is that?
Is there no social anxiety in Spain?
I'm sure there is, but I think like we're such a social culture that there's not like, there's shy people, but they still have a big group of friends, you know.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Like I didn't even discover I'm an introvert until I was here, because it's not a thing, you know.
Not allowed.
Yeah, or maybe just my family system, but I think in general in Spain, social anxiety may exist, but you're not allowed to, it's not allowed to grow so much, because
you can't be as isolated.
No, it just, people won't let you, you know, like
this has nothing to do with the topic I want to talk to you about today, but that makes me think of the fact when I was 18, I did an exchange program and I lived in Chile. And when I was down there, I realized what a gift it is for there to be like a scripted hello and goodbye ritual with everyone. Like, you always do the same thing. You don't have to stand there and decide, is this a hug person, like a wave person? You know, like, it's so awkward in the US. And there it was like, you just kiss everyone on the cheek and move on. It was absolutely taken care of. And that got rid of a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, same in Spain. Like, you greet everybody with 2 kisses, and like, that's what you do. And it's,
there's a lot of peace in that.
Yeah, there's like, we have a ton of like things that there's not even a question, you know.
Yeah,
like, especially socially. So I didn't experience myself as socially anxious, but I had horrendous beliefs in love, and had a very bad case of the ugly duckling syndrome and the narcissist farmer syndrome.
Will you give a definition of the narcissist farmer?
So in my family system, I was really trained to be a supportive person, to listen, to be there for others. And so I would give others what I wanted to be given. But I mean, that's a good rule of thumb. But then if you, like, I realized this when I was living at the SL Institute, that these lovely people would come in and I would like take them under my wing and get a really good friendship going. And then after 3 or 4 months, it was super difficult to talk about me in those friendships, right? Because I had, and these were lovely people. These were not narcissistic, whatever. Narcissistic people is wounded people, but these were not like self-involved people, but I would focus so much on them and give them so much support. And when they would ask me, like, how are you doing? And I would say like, good, but how are you doing? right? And that then when I had a problem and I went to them, it was so outside of the relationship that they would act, they wouldn't even know how to behave, even though they really knew with other people, right? And yeah, I had to learn to take up the space that people were giving me, and that, it's like in my mind I was like, if I give you this a lot, then it was more like this, like social bank. It's like I put a lot of, it's like, this is the codependent thing, right? Like I put a lot of here and then I can take it away when I need it, and that's not how relationships
not
work,
how it
actually.
works.
Yeah.
So you kind of like lay the foundation for a one-sided relationship in the hopes that it'll pay off and end up being two-sided, and it has the exact opposite effect in the long run. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got your own stuff around love, maybe not social anxiety, but I know that you work a lot with single people who are wanting to not be single.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have you talk a little bit about what those clients struggle with, like what the challenges are or what the obstacles that they face are, and kind of how you work with them, like what that work looks like.
Yeah. So there's a few different kinds of people that we work with, that people who struggles with that comes with. Like there's a kind of person that their social skills are not great, right? And they really struggle to connect in their dates. And also these people tend to not have much support, right? Or many friends around them, right? And I think this is a very, I think it's like I think of it as very American, in the way of like, you went through school and you had a group of friends, and then went through maybe college or maybe started working. But then if you didn't actively cultivate that and you had some social anxiety, then you lost a ton of skills and didn't update them, right? So some of these people really struggle. And with these people, it's more about social skills and teaching them to flirt, teaching them to connect, right? I don't even like the word social skills. It's more like teaching them to take in connection and give connection, right? So that's one category. And then we have another category, I would say, of people who have like really great social skills, and they're getting dates, and it's going well, and then they have some pattern that keeps on repeating, right? And for that reason, they haven't been able to find love or to keep a relationship, right? And of those, there are like many patterns, but I would say there's the pattern of people who get involved with like, so for me, all of these patterns are more based in deep-seated, very toxic beliefs about themselves. And then they feel really true because when we have one of these beliefs, we go out and then we kind of arrange life. So like life corroborates those beliefs with us, right?
Definitely.
And there's like, for example, like the person that tends to only date people that end up being really toxic, or the person that does really well on dates and everybody likes them, but they find a little thing with everybody, and they haven't quite found the person they like, right? Even though a lot of people wants to be with them. Yeah, this kinds of.
So what would be an example in that, like the pattern of I pick people who aren't good for me, or I can't find anyone who I'm attracted to who's good for me, or, whatever. What would be an example of the belief that a person has about themselves that
Yeah.
leads to that kind of pattern?
So usually, I can talk about myself because
Okay.
this is a thing that I used to have. So for me, that's like fear, like we all have fear of intimacy, right? Even those of us in in relationships, right? Like fear of intimacy is a thing. But I think those of us that come from a family system that either we didn't get to experience much intimacy. So some family systems, like the relationships are very superficial, right? Or we got to experience a ton of intimacy, but it came with a lot of conflict, right?
Mhm.
Um, we form beliefs around it, right? And for example, I had a strong belief growing up of there's something secretly wrong about me, right? So I would only fall for really unavailable people. Um, I would fall in love with the more unlikely people. My flirting was basically based in ignoring. I was like, if I like you, I'm not gonna look at you ever. I'm somehow it didn't work, I don't get it. Yeah, and then I had a little bit of disgust for people that were into me, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
What's that
And
quote? Like you wouldn't want to be a part of any club that let you in
yeah,
or whatever?
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was like, and I felt really flooded when people were really into me, right? So I would
Mhm.
I would find ways to dismiss them, right? Or
Yeah.
I would literally feel disgust. Um, and that was rooted in like a big sense of right, like those are like protector parts of me
Mhm.
that were trying to protect me from the despair that I felt with intimacy, sometimes in the family of origin, or yeah. So it was I had like a very a lot of my love life was in my imagination.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that, like body image issues, that the sort of unhealthy patterns we develop around dating are always self-protective?
Yeah,
Like that they're always serving some,
yeah, yeah.
self-protective
And like
purpose?
I haven't met anybody that has unhealthy patterns around dating, and then and that they don't have like really good reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's like
Okay.
yeah, like and that probably saved your life at the time, right? And right now it's
Right.
getting in the way, but like it did and these things that I'm talking about right now, like it did really help me in really
Yeah.
difficult times. Yeah.
So to kind of bring the crossover, I work with a lot of people who, when they're single, they blame their body or appearance. Like they make the logic leap to, if only I was more attractive, I would find somebody. Clearly, the fact that I haven't found somebody means I'm not attractive. And then, like you said, that sort of corroborating of the belief that happens. Um, this is very, very common, especially among like self-objectifiers and people who have learned basically that their value comes from how attractive they are.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that particular protective mechanism? Like, how does that impact a person's dating life? How does it impact a person's ability to actually connect with people when they are blaming their bodies or their appearance for not being attractive enough to like earn them a partner?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was totally that person. And for many, many years, I was definitely a self-objectifier. And I would say that like I have so much tenderness for that. And if I had honestly, if I had a superpower, it would be like magic rays that would impede people to do that to themselves, because
Yeah.
like it's just so, and you can be so many years and that will and really
definitely.
think that you're gonna reach. So it really keeps you really stuck. But I would say like, and I'm talking about myself, so I don't talk about any client or anybody, just as a way. But like I would say like, it's very hard to connect that way, right?
Yeah.
Because if you are constantly monitoring yourself, for example, the sex I had at that time was abysmal.
Yeah.
Because I was not even in my body. I was really worried, like, is my belly like, is this view, is this like this, and that's absolutely horrible sex. And of course, if you're doing that and not like communicating about that, your partner has no idea, and then you think that is sex, right? And it's really difficult to connect. It's really difficult to connect in that way. It's really difficult to take in that there is love available for you, right? Because you are super zoned into what you think makes you unlovable. And it's also very difficult to connect to yourself, right? That's another way to, I mean, in your work, I would say that's the gist of that, right? Like this is a way that we escape our own pain. And by escaping our own pain, we're not there and we cannot do anything about that very real pain, right? And we are preoccupied and we really think like, if we get this thing, also I think there's like a similar, like very often the body image preoccupation comes hand in hand with the, if I have a partner, everything will be okay, right? And I think it's both the same, because it's not true what kind of a partner, right? And like, and very often when we're caught in those ways, like I think some people are very lucky and they find a partner that really contributes to their healing. But in my experience, those of us that we struggle with these things and we really believe that, we tend to find partners that only, I'm trying to find a word,
like
only
reinforce the
like bring up more of the underlying pain, right?
I tell my single self-objectifiers all the time that like I have many long-time married self-objectifiers and we're not having different conversations. It's sort of vaguely focused on like, what if my partner leaves me or isn't attracted to me or cheats me or abandons me, versus what if I never find love? What if I end up alone? So they're like a little bit different, but the underlying pattern doesn't change just because you find a partner.
Yeah. And it's so lonely.
It's
so lonely. And you're even lonely with your friends, because like you're secretly thinking that you, like, it's just such a lonely way of live. Way to live.
It really is. As a former self-objectifier myself, I also have a lot of tenderness for this. I definitely feel like it's almost like there's only so much room in your brain. So when you spend a huge chunk on it all the time, thinking about how you appear to others, like not only do you not feel worthy of love for other reasons, you also never get to develop any reason to feel worthy. Like you're just busy, so you're not present. The sex is terrible. Like the people who are attracted to you and drawn to you from that place tend to be the kind who are upholding and reinforcing the idea that your value comes from your appearance. It's just it's a horrible situation. And then you end up feeling like, well, this is my one shot. Like the only shot I have at love is love that objectifies me and makes me feel a little bit lonely and worthless all the time.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. I'm so glad you work with this, because I have to say, like, so funnily enough, when I started in psychotherapy, I was like, I'm going to work on eating disorders, right? Because I had them in the past. And like, I wanted to do the work that you do. And like, I got a taste of it and was like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, it's like, because it's like when you are out of that, it requires a patience that I don't super have now, like, it's like, I feel like, can we talk about the real thing, please?
Yeah.
And like, of course,
Yeah.
that's not where people are. And like, it's a little bit like when, 4-year-olds think that 3-year-olds are stupid.
Yeah. Totally.
I don't think they are stupid in any way, no, but like it's like,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to tolerate. It's like, no, I'm not wearing diapers anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really understand that. I do think as you get further along, dealing with people who are on step one gets a little bit harder as you go along. But so with this kind of belief system underneath a person's dating experience, let's say they just haven't happened to meet the right person for any number of reasons. They get more and more sure that it has to do with being not attractive enough. They get more and more like, their kind of self-worth window gets smaller and smaller, and this
Yeah,
whole thing
yeah.
continues on. So what would you say at that point is like, what would you say to them if they said, I'm just never going to find love because I'm not attractive enough? I mean, you can see that they have a belief system playing out underneath, but they
Yeah,
don't usually see that. And it
yeah.
sounds to me like a lot of the work you do is sort of bringing those belief systems like into the light. So what would you
Yeah.
say to that person?
Well, usually if they come to work with me, it's like, clearly there's some part of you that believes it's possible, because otherwise you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have hired me,
That's a
right?
good point.
And then something else I do, tell me.
No, I was just saying that's a good point, that like because of what you do, they have to have some little bit of buy-in to the idea that maybe they're wrong. If they're
Yeah,
really sure they can't find someone, but they still hired you,
yeah.
some part of them, yeah.
And the next part is sometimes what I try, like, so maybe like in the first session, I try to know where they feel capable, right? Because usually, like, those of us that had or have difficult self-beliefs in love, sometimes there's another part that we feel very competent, right? And it can be work, it can be
Yeah.
friendships, it can be, I don't know, family or parenting, it can be whatever. And then I have them talk about that, and I have them see how did you get like this? What things do you believe, right? And show them how the things they believe about love are like the things they believe. For example, let's say somebody's like very competent in work, and it's like, were you born being amazing at work? It's like, no, like, of course, and this and that. And like, how did you get really good at what you do? And what are the things that you believe about love? Or I tell them, like, do you know somebody, do you have a friend or somebody at work that you feel like, oh my God, this person has horrendous beliefs at work, right? Like,
Yeah.
they never want to do the work, and they always think that work owes them, and like, they do terrible on interviews because they demand, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I go, so you can see that. So these are not the beliefs you have in love, right?
Yeah.
The beliefs you have in love are a little bit of a jumble. Like, I think one belief, a big belief that I had to is like, I just have bad luck. I just have bad
Huh.
luck. Or like I'm not, like, it's like God or life or the universe, or like, I just have the worst luck in love, right?
Yeah.
And
Huh.
yeah, and then I make them in other areas where they feel competent. It usually they don't feel it's because they have luck. Like, of course they see that luck helps,
Right.
right? But they see that there's all these other behaviors that they do. Yeah.
So you shine a light on just basically the fact that their beliefs impact their outcomes in other
Yeah.
areas
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that they can see it's impacting their outcome here, and then
Yeah.
maybe start to get more curious about what beliefs there might be there. But that bad luck one is so interesting because I also feel like something I see a lot is people who have the belief that like finding a partner is sort of a reward,
Yeah.
like for doing life right.
Yeah.
And I find that one is super difficult to push back against, because it's like, it's not conscious. Usually people don't walk around being like, where is my reward? But like, they kind of do
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
that, like, well, why did she get a reward when she's not even like as good at life as I am?
Yeah.
And then it just like really, it makes it really difficult to approach anything from a place of actual connection.
Yeah. The first thing is to bring, like what you're saying, right? Like to bring those beliefs to consciousness. And that sometimes can take several sessions, right? Because
Yeah.
like these feel like the truth, you know, and
Yeah.
we have so much evidence to back them up, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. People, I mean, that's always the case with our beliefs though, like our subconscious beliefs about how things work. We have spent so long backing them up with evidence that, like, whenever I challenge a client on something like this, I'm like, I don't expect you to believe me right now. I just want us
Yeah.
to start like poking around in somewhere that feels like the fabric of reality to you, and
Yeah,
start,
exactly.
yeah, like questioning it. Cause there's no
Yeah.
way that you're just going to be like, oh yeah, maybe that's not true after all. You're like, let me tell you 25 stories about how
Yeah.
it's true.
Exactly. Exactly. That's how I was too in therapy
Yeah.
for a long time. I was like, no, this is like the truth.
So, in your opinion, then, what beliefs form like the biggest blocks or obstacles to finding love? Like, people have their own stories, all kinds of stories, bad luck, not hot enough or thin enough. I haven't like done life right yet and gotten my reward. Like, what would you say the real actual blocks are?
So they all come down to some version of I'm unworthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we each have, so all of this that I'm saying is very influenced by the work of Catherine Woodward Thomas, who I took a training with, and I think she really nailed it down. And a lot of what she does is like, I think a little bit based in CBT,
Mm-hmm.
in the belief work of CBT, but like I think she really nails it. So deep down is something like I'm unworthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I'm too much, or I'm too little. I'm invisible.
Yeah.
I'm unlovable. I am not wanted.
Yeah.
And each of these have a flavor. And like she has this great process that doesn't work for everybody, but like it really worked for me, that like you find the belief, and then you see all the skills you need to develop to get out of this belief, right? So you challenge it with something real. First you
Mm-hmm.
challenge it, like for example, like I'm unwanted. um so first you challenge it with like, not with something flowery, you know, not with
Yeah.
something excessively positive, but like with something real, you know,
Yeah.
like mm, I am wanted in many spaces. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you have this belief because your family didn't want you or something, but like somebody in your extended family did want you, right? Or
Yeah.
like there's always a way to challenge it in reality, right?
Yep.
And like there are these places where I'm wanted and I'm loved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want myself, right?
Yeah.
It also comes back to like, do I want myself? I want myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you find all the micro skills that you need to develop because this belief hasn't allowed you to develop them, right? So for example, I had a big one that was like, I'm invisible. And the first skill for me to challenge was seeing myself and like literally learning my own feelings and needs
Ooh, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
wants. And it took work, you know,
Uh-huh.
because I was like an ode to codependence. Like I was very tuned to what other people wanted, but like I wasn't tuned to myself. That doesn't mean like I didn't get my needs met, but I get them met in roundabout, convoluted ways, right? So first seeing myself, and then I had to learn the skill of taking up space. Because I was like, and I still have to like sometimes refresh it, right? It's like I started to feel resentful. It's like, okay, you need to take more space, right? And I had to learn the skill of like, for me at the beginning, it felt that I was being the most boring person if I was really, really telling you the story, right? Like I was like, oh my God, I'm boring this person to death. And I remember like I still have this really good friend, Nieves, and we had been friends for several years. And I was giving myself the space to tell her a story of something that I had tell her 1,000 times, right? And she was like, wow, Laia, like I really get the feeling of it now, right? But I had to give myself all that space. And it was a thing that for me was so tried. And it's like, oh my God, I don't talk about anything else ever. You know, this very repetitive thing, but like I hadn't really conveyed it yet, right? Yeah.
So I think this is something that comes up with my clients a lot for sure, is when you realize that one of your underlying beliefs is actually protecting you from doing something hard.
Yeah.
Because there's no damn point in learning how to take space if you're just invisible and nobody is ever going to pay attention to you, right? It's like that, that belief is so effective at keeping you from ever needing to do the hard, scary thing of learning how to take up space.
Yeah.
And then like tolerate people giving you the attention.
Yeah.
All those things can feel, you know, it's like, even if in your head, you're like, yeah, I wish for them, you wish for them very passively. And you sort of just wish they would land on you. Nobody wishes to do the hard work to build the skill to get the thing. Like that part is not usually, you know, a part of the equation. So in that way, we can see how a belief like I'm just invisible would actually protect you from doing all of this hard, scary work. And the only way out of a belief like that is to do the hard, scary work and then look back and be like, oh, I guess that wasn't true, because here I am taking up space and I don't feel invisible anymore.
Yeah. And also that belief is like any of these beliefs are protecting you from like it is really painful to be boring sometimes with some people, right? And but I now choose that I will sometimes bore my people, you know. That's okay, we can bore each other. You don't have to be interesting all the time to me, and I don't have to be interesting all the time. Like I don't set out to be boring, but I also have the right to be boring, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it also does protect you from, you know, like the rejection possibility, the risk of someone being like, damn, this was a boring story and I don't feel like hanging out with you anymore, which almost never happens the way that we imagine it'll happen before we start practicing, but still could happen. And certainly having a belief like nobody's ever going to love me is going to protect you from ever finding out.
Yeah, but it does happen. Like some people do find me boring, you know, and like don't want, like I don't have the belief that I'm boring, but it's like, yeah, if I really give myself space, like when I'm having a really hard time, yeah, I've some friendships have cooled from that.
Yeah.
You know, have cooled, and it's okay.
It's okay.
You know?
So that brings me to the cup of tea thing that you were talking about that I want you to share here. This is essentially the I had asked you what you wish everybody knew, and you talked a little bit about the being a cup of tea and for whom. So tell me about that. Like what is it that you wish for people to be able to understand as they're going through the process of dating and healing?
So I believe this to be a universal truth. I really believe that, right? Except like, I don't know, some very, 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 very exceptional cases, right? But you're not everybody's cup of tea. but you are somebody's cup of tea. And of those somebody's people that you're their cup of tea, some of them will be your cup of tea too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is true, And I think people confuses dating with having to be super successful and attractive. And these are unrelated things, let me tell you. Like literally unrelated. I have worked with some people that are incredibly successful and attractive, and they don't, you can be very successful and attractive and not find love.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a ton of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing doesn't mean the other,
Yeah.
And like, I think people's job for dating is like to be themselves as much as possible.
Yeah.
And to put themselves out there. Honestly, I also think like I have a whole rant about like dating profiles. It's like, put some energy in your dating profile, don't put a selfie in your car and a selfie in your messy room,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we don't need that. Like, put like the same way, like, yeah, so you are somebody's cup of tea and your job is to find them, and your job is also to like be able to recognize that, be able to recognize that you are some people's cup of tea. Because I think some of us, like definitely me in the younger years, like you had to beat me over the head for me to understand that you were attracted to me, because I was so in my story of like, I'm the ugly duckling that like, and like, I'm sure like I lost many connections and occasions to have fun, or to be loved, because I just couldn't see it, right? So like, your job is to like take it in when it comes, right? And then decide if you're into it.
So kind of two jobs, neither of which I think it's very important to
better yourself.
Yeah, like neither of which is like to be more attractive or successful or do life better or whatever. One is to express yourself more in the world. I guess know yourself, express yourself more in the world so that other people who you're their cup of tea can actually find you. And the other is to do whatever work has to happen for you to recognize who's your cup of tea so that you can make good decisions when things show up.
Yeah. And I will add something to that. If you are doing a ton of work to better yourself, right? What's more likely to happen is that you will also want, like, for example, when I was dieting and trying really hard to look good and, and caught up on eating disorders, I only liked really attractive people, because I think there's a little bit of like, oh my God, if like, I think there's like I don't think it's like a conscious thing, but it's like, if I have to do this, the other person better do it, right?
Yep.
Which none of these two things are related to having a good relationship. Somebody that is very attractive might not have any of the skills that are required to cultivate a healthy long-term relationship, right? So I would argue against that, of like, if you want to be attracted to healthier, more self-loving people, you have to stop all this stuff, right? I mean, it's easy to say and like very hard to do, but yeah.
So essentially you're saying that when you are on the hamster wheel of trying to get more attractive according to conventional ideals, you're a lot more likely to be drawn exclusively to people who are on that same hamster wheel. Yeah. And in part, it's a little bit of like, it's like the reason why some people don't want to forgive student loans. They're like, because I had to pay mine.
Yeah.
It's just exactly. It's like revenge in a little bit of a way.
Revenge. And I think also like when you're doing so much work of self-monitoring, right? You see, that's another thing that I see a lot. Like you really think the world is, I don't know how to say it. Like you live in a world where like you are monitoring how attractive is everybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're like, so-and-so is more attractive than me, but so-and-so is less attractive than me.
Yes.
And this person is
Oh,
more
yeah.
attractive than me. And oh my God, if I got to be with that person, like, oh, like the thrill of going up in the scale, which none of it
Yeah.
has to do with love or with good
No.
relationships or with taking in love and with taking in connection and with like being seen, and which is what actually all of us want, right?
Yeah.
Like we all want to be seen, we all want to be loved exactly for who we are, we all want to feel connected and part of something that we respect, right? Like these are
Yeah.
basic needs, and all of those things have nothing to do with that, right? Like if
Yeah.
you get that hot person.
So there's something in there about, I mean, there's objectification, of course. When you hold an objectifying view of yourself, it's really likely you're going to hold it for everyone else. There's also like the social status element of like,
Yeah.
I've clawed my way up this little social hierarchy and my reward is a higher social status person. And so I'm not attracted to people who are lower social status because it's all about this little like climbing up to get more privilege. Very, very limiting way of approaching partnership. But yeah, I think that all that stuff, people don't realize how much the rules they're holding for themselves impact both what they hold for other people and who they're drawn to, and then also what they imagine other people are thinking about them.
Exactly.
I describe it as like, it's kind of like a self-inflicted paranoia when you go around thinking kinds of thoughts. And then you're like, well, obviously everyone thinks this about me. Like everyone's looking at me and going like, how high status are they, you know? Yeah, it definitely does not bode well for genuinely supportive, healthy, secure relationships.
It does not bode well for anything. It does. It's
Yeah.
just like, and I say it from experience, like I was really caught in this stuff. And usually when we are caught up in that stuff, it's because we have a deep belief of unworthiness.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would be doing this? Why? It's so energetically expensive.
Yeah.
And I mean the word energy in like the physical thing,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
the kind of
exhausting.
energy that it takes to like, monitor yourself so much, like in these like reality shows,
Yeah.
right? And it's like I am fascinated, right? That like all these people are adults and they're still like so caught up, and they have, it's very unhappy.
Yeah. So I think this is a question that has to come after what we just talked about, because I feel like anybody listening would say, well, that's all very well and good. And I'd like to find the kind of love you're describing, but that's just not who I'm attracted to. So how do you talk to clients around that particular aspect of like, I'm just attracted to men who are over 6 feet tall and, millionaires. Like that's just who I'm attracted to. I think this is one of those beliefs that people cling to in order to kind of stay on the hamster wheel. So what do you say to those clients?
Totally. Well, I am going to whip out the work of another person that I really admire, Ken Page. And he has this book called Deeper Dating and this podcast that is free that is called Deeper Dating, that is, he's like the very kind, compassionate dating that
Yeah.
that we all deserve. I love him. So he talks about attractions of deprivation and attractions of, damn it. Well, two kinds of attractions, right? Deprivation is this kind of attraction you're talking. That is like, if you are only attracted to the 6 feet tall guy that is a millionaire, and maybe you get him, right? Maybe you get to be with him, and it feels great, but not quite, right? It feels like there's this initial rush of like, I must be acceptable in this world because this guy likes me, which I spent so much time there. But then it's like the relationship, like there's like, unless you're very lucky, but if you're very lucky, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, because I also believe like there's people that don't come into this world to work these things, and they like just find their person like in high school or college, and they stay all their life together, and
So what do you say to that? Because I feel like that's a question that I often get from clients. Not even a question, it's just a complaint. They're like, how come I have to work so hard at this and my stupid sister got married? And like,
I have a total rant about it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, I definitely have a good answer. So you, like, an attraction of deprivation is like, you are with this person, but there's always like, sometimes they are great, but sometimes you feel kind of lonely in that relationship. And sometimes they are great, but sometimes they say things that feel a little bit mean or a little bit disinterested, right? But like, it keeps you, like, those kinds of attractions are way hotter and way more addictive than attraction of.
Is it inspiration?
Inspiration. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're fast. I'm impressed. I couldn't even tell. So attractions of inspiration is somebody that you feel really safe with. Like he says, does your soul feel safe with them? That's what Ken Page said. Ken Page is like a delight. And usually with these attractions of deprivation, you don't feel very safe, but you would like, you feel very turned on, right? Because there's this level of like, of unsafety that can be really hot in sex. And then he talks about like, when you find an attraction of inspiration, sometimes you can have what he calls, I think, like the ick.
What is it?
Which is like, a lot of us have, like, fear of intimacy, right? And then you find this person and you feel safe, they are into you, they don't make you feel anxious, right? You feel secure that they like you. But if you've had all these past relationships and you associate love with this high anxiety thing, the ick is like, suddenly is like, oh my God, do they have to breathe so loudly?
Oh, the ick. Yes.
Or like, oh my God, can they be more boring, right? And you found them interesting just a week ago, but suddenly you're like, is this like what my life is now? Like this, like, devaluation, which is basically fear of intimacy coming to the rescue, because you have fear of intimacy because intimacy has been very dangerous for you, right? So then you start to feel safe, and this part that has your safety, wants safety for you, is like, don't get close, I'm gonna make their chewing very annoying, or I'm gonna make their, I don't know,
a way of interrupting it, basically.
Which is also like relationship OCD, right? Like when you are in a relationship that is actually really good for you and feels very good, but you're always like, is this my person? Like, am I settling? Like,
I sometimes equate this to like, if you have a history of like doing party drugs, and then you just like settle into a nice, normal, mostly sober life, like,
exactly,
you're pretty likely to question, is this all that there is, for a while, as you get used to the fact that, yeah, actually this is lovely. And that was exaggerated and not necessarily like the thing that life is going to feel like. But yeah, after you come from those high roller coaster, high validation, whatever it is, kind of high anxiety relationships, that there is a lot of questioning. I see a lot of clients go through that. So, okay. And basically what you're saying then is a person can alter their attraction through the healing work around basically intimacy, like what they're willing to tolerate, what they're available for, what they believe about what is supposed to happen, which makes a ton of sense. And also, I feel like that validation piece is huge. Like, a lot of people think of a relationship as a place to be validated. And that is just not a very good basis for the kind of intimacy that I do think we all want. But certainly if you don't want that, it's a nice replacement, right?
But I think it's the case for a lot of people of like I just want a person that is like this and like that. And it's like, for me, like when you want a person like that is like this and like that, and those things have nothing to do with the quality of relationship that you want, right? Like if you are like, I don't want to put examples, but we all know them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the most interesting bit of this conversation is around, if you're putting in the effort to look conventionally attractive and kind of claw your way up the social hierarchy, that is undoubtedly going to impact who you're attracted to. And this goes both ways, for like probably all genders and all orientations. And in some ways, I think you could even, like, generously, you could call it a value system. Like, if you value being in the hardcore fitness and diet culture, you're just going to want someone who aligns with your lifestyle, your values. So fine. Less generously, I would say it's some of what we were talking about before, in terms of you're attracted to people who are using all of their time and energy to claw their way up the hierarchy as well. And that does change. I will say, like, coming out of the fitness industry for myself and going through the whole body neutrality journey myself, who I'm attracted to now is night and day from who I was attracted to before. And I never sat down with myself and said, I'm going to change who I'm attracted to. It just happened. And I would actually say that, like, conventionally attractive men at this point are the least attractive to me, because I have formed such a strong association with them not being the kind of person who has developed the inner world that I connect with.
Yeah.
Not that they couldn't. It's just, it seems so unlikely at this point that even if I were to see like a picture of a conventionally attractive guy, my brain would be like, unlikely.
No, sometimes I look at pictures of like young male models and it's like, I project that they are more worried about the face they're making than, I don't know. It's like, and it's like, I'd rather.
You're like, are you even embodied? Like,
Yeah,
can
are
you
you
even
here
be
with us?
present?
Yeah.
Seems unlikely. Okay, I really want you to go on your rant now about this question of how come they didn't have to work hard and I do at finding love.
So listen, true. Absolutely true. And this is true about all life. Like, some of us come here with unearned wealth, unearned family wealth, and some of us don't. Some of us come here with like emotional intelligence, and some of us have to work really hard. Some of us come here with like the kind of face and body that is very beautiful in this current time, and some of us don't. Some of us come, don't even get me started with like color of skin or cultural markers or sexual preference, right? It's true. But this is what you have been given. Is it fair? Not anymore than anything else is fair. It's not, it really is not. Like, it really is not. I have things that other people have to work really hard for, and I have had to work really hard for things that other people have for granted. And this is true of a lot of us, right?
Yeah. So I don't know why this has never
here's the
occurred to me
thing,
before. Yeah.
Here's the thing. You wanting is like, if like you wanting this to be different for you is not gonna change.
Right.
Like, this is what you bring, this is what you have been given to work through, right? And for example, let's say somebody wants a lot of money, you wanting to be, you thinking that you should have been born with and earn wealth is not gonna make it so. If you really want a lot of money, maybe there, I don't know, capitalism, right? But like,
yeah,
some people, right? And this is the same, like some people came here and like and found their partner, and it's a great emotionally available partner, and they have this beautiful thing from the start, and it's like, this is like being like, and they didn't have to work, and this is what they were given.
yeah.
Probably they're, yeah.
That is so true and so obvious. And also, I think so like radical at the same time, because we are obsessed with what's fair, but we very rarely think about, like, because we're obsessed with what's unfair, we rarely think about like how the stuff that's working out for us is just equally unfair. I mean, ultimately, like, it's all pretty random and we're all born with strengths and weaknesses, and we don't go around suffering over like, why do I have this strength? But like,
Exactly.
it is such a big pattern to do this. And I would say probably more in terms of finding relationships than other areas, that there is a feeling of injustice that other people have to work at it, or rather that other people don't have to work about it for the people who do. Yeah, that's super interesting. It isn't fair, but neither is anything else. And that kind of zoomed back perspective just taps you back into the idea that, like, yeah, you're probably good at some shit naturally, some other shit that the person who's been married since they were like 17 and seems fine and happy, like, would, you know, die to have that skill. Like, that's the trade-off of everything.
Yeah.
So true. All right. Anything else that you want to say that we haven't gotten to talk about today? I had plenty of other questions, but I think we'll just wrap it up. So if there's anything else on your mind.
I think what I want for everybody is like, get curious about it.
Yeah.
Right? Get really curious about how are you keeping yourself single, right? And get really curious about, I think with dating, I think with everything, right? But with dating, or we tend to, to the day of today, I still do that, even though I'm very trained in these other things. But like, what we all try to do is first like control and fix something external, right? It's like no, like, turn your gaze towards yourself, get really curious about what's happening for you, and they're like,
yeah,
you know, if you cannot work with a coach or a therapist, like Ken Page is a great resource. Catherine Woodward Thomas is a great resource. Get really curious and see like what is your pattern, and how are you, yes, it's unfair, but how are you, what's your part of the dance in this pattern, right? Like, life brings you this, right? But then what do you do with that, right? And there's so much power in there, and people do change this all the time. So yeah, it's very changeable.
Curious about your role in it, and sort of zoom back or find a way to hold the luck component differently. The idea that like there was an injustice in distribution is only going to get in your way. And the truth is, like, this is what you've got, and accepting reality and then making decisions based on that reality moving forward is always going to be a million times more effective and helpful in the long run, versus just being mad about reality and
but this is what you got. I don't see it as like, oh, the shit, you don't get a partner in this lifetime, you know? No, I see it more as like, this is what you have to learn and work through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think everybody that wants one partner or several partners can have it. I really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
believe this in my bones, and I know this to
Same.
be true. It just, for some of us, it will take more self-knowledge and introspection and work, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I always say this to my clients when they're really stuck on the belief of like, there's just nobody for me. Nobody's ever going to love me. It's like, there are 8 billion people on this planet.
yeah.
The odds that
Yeah.
none of them would love you are so low. Like ultimately it comes down to how many partners do you want? One, a couple? Like ultimately the percentage you're looking for is so tiny in the pool that you don't have to appeal to everyone. Like you said, you don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. You barely have to be anyone's cup of tea to have a pretty damn full life. So yeah, that is a huge shift in perspective. Also is going from like, in order to find anyone, I have to appeal to everyone versus I'm literally just looking for like a couple people.
But not even a couple. Like, even if you're not super attractive, I bet you money that there's people in 2-mile radius, like whoever you are, there's
Yeah.
people in 2-mile radius of your home. There's at least 10 people in 2-mile radius of your home that are close to your age that would find you attractive.
Yeah.
And that they are like suitable.
Yeah.
It just, there's so many of us.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like one, like, because I think people also get trapped is like, oh, the one
Yeah.
person, what it, like, no, it's like we have a lot of.
Yeah.
I don't think also like there's only one. Some of us, you know, some of us maybe have one soulmate, and good luck to those, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think most of us have like a lot, you know,
Yeah.
like a lot of.
I feel like my cat is one of my soulmates.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me started about my dog. Like, she's totally one of my soulmates.
All right, Laia, this was fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody where they can find you if they were just like super interested in this conversation, want to learn more about you online.
I don't have anything online, but they could find me through the relationship center.
Don't you have a website? Wasn't I just at your website?
Yeah, the laiapedreno.com.
Yeah.
Okay, laiapedreno.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it. I am so glad you got to come and join me for this conversation. I was really excited about this. And to everybody listening, thank you for being here. And you know where to find me, jessineeland.com and at Jessie Neeland in all the social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. And thank you for listening.
I recommend Jessie really hard. I've recommended you so many times. And you know how you recommend someone to people and only like 2% of those call?
Yeah.
Right? But like, I really think you are it.
Thank you, Laia. Laia is a very, very supportive client.
No, you're amazing.
Thank you. All right. Well, everyone, I will catch you next week, and thanks for listening.